Okay, welcome to episode 9 of the Peace Over Chaos, the show. What real recovery looks like with our special guest, Poppy Lyons. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, thank you for coming. And welcome to the show. We're going to be celebrating the females today, aren't we? Girl power.
That's it, female empowerment,
Yeah.
sobriety, yeah.
Yeah, so we've got yourself and we've got our ambassador Machiko from the USA coming on later to follow up from you. It's going to be an amazing episode. So we're going to be diving deep into what recovery looks like. But before we do, can you tell everyone watching a little bit about who you are and how you know Roy?
Yeah, so I come from a family of addiction, so I'm lived experience twofold. So I grew up around addiction, and I'm a recovering alcoholic myself, 8 years sobriety. I know Roy from when I went for a stint of working on the strip clubs on Prince of Wales Road about 15 years ago.
And obviously Roy would have never been in there, would he? I mean, you must have seen him on the outside. But
Yeah, Roy was never
yeah,
in
I
any of
thought
the
so.
clubs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we were obviously both fucking mental and drinking and everything else. So yeah, it was a crazy time. And that the funny thing about working in strip clubs, I first started doing that at 18 in London, but it legitimised the lifestyle. You know, suddenly you're in the realm of free booze and cocaine. And you're like, it's my lifestyle. I'm making my customer happy, so it just makes it all right to live like that.
And
But
are you a Norwich girl? So were you working in Norwich and were you from Norwich or were you outside Norwich?
I was just working in Norwich.
Okay.
Yeah, some of the girls and us lived in a house together and worked together, so it was pretty crazy
Yeah, well,
times.
we're similar ages, aren't we? So
Yeah,
obviously, because I was such a good boy, teacher, I'd never been in one. You had to Google what one of them was just
yeah.
before
I
the
thought I
show, didn't I?
recognised you from
No,
somewhere.
probably outside in the fish and chip shop.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was in Monday Night Liquid across the road, just so everyone watching at home knows that. Sorry, Dad. So no, but can you tell me a little bit about before we go into the you now?
Yeah.
Um, what career were you uptaking before you went into that world?
So I've had so many different careers. So I worked in the music industry for years, from the age of 17. That was in London, and what when I had my sort of rock bottom epiphany, spiritual awakening moment in my car crash, I was actually an estate agent.
Wow.
So yeah, I've had loads of different careers, sort of sell. Everything I touch turns to sold, gift of the gab shit. And then I started when after I got sober, did my degree in working in charities. So I was a domestic abuse practitioner for a couple of years. That was heavy going. I worked for Suffolk Rape Crisis, the trained listener. And now what I do at the minute, which we'll talk about later, has just completely changed my life. You know, working with prisoners for the resettlement and working in a rehab. So that's
Wow, and we are going to
yeah.
dive deep into that as we go. And so welcome. So question one, what does real recovery look like and mean to you right now?
Okay, so real recovery, it's not just the physical aspects of it, like the hangovers, the intense like anxiety, shame spiraling, trying to do my makeup and my hands shaking, and the only thing to stop all of that is to have another drink, right? It's not just being on that crazy fucking train. It's the mental side of it that now I trust myself, like, and I have trust in the universe. You know, I'm into this woo woo shit, so I have trust in the universe that whatever happens, it's gonna be all right. Because I've had some fucking hard times, you know, and come through some really quite terrible shit. But I know I'll be all right in the end. And
Yeah.
also, like, try my best to have integrity, treat others in a good way. You know, in AA, they talk about rigorous honesty. And yeah, it's progress, not perfection, is what they say in AA. So we're not like perfect beings. We never, you know, try and say that, yeah, because we're sober, we're suddenly perfect. But it's about being conscious of trying to have that progression spiritually, mentally, emotionally, um, rather than just not giving a fuck about anything.
And I think I don't know whether you agree with this, but I think anyone who's perfect probably hasn't been through a lot in their life.
That's it.
Probably been under a shelter.
Yeah, I call them normies. People that have not been through any trauma or loss or addiction, or I don't really trust them. The normies, they're kind of a bit like robots, but yeah, that they wouldn't understand me at all, and I don't understand them. So
You don't need to.
no.
So where you are right now, was sober enough for you? So like you mentioned it, you can dive deep into your sobriety if you can,
Mm-hmm.
and how you've got here. But was that enough at the time, like when you cut everything out, or did you have to go through more? you mentioned spiritually and stuff. Did you have to go through more than just being sober to evolve to who you are now?
100%. So I had my crash, and I was basically 3 times over the limit and coked off my tits. And I've been up for like 3 days, and had a really bad crash. Went through a midsection, down a ditch, onto someone's property, and straight into a tree. It was my work car, my estate agent work car. So I got dismissed for gross misconduct. Had to pay the lease back on the car because the insurance was void. Criminal record, all of that shit. But it was weird, Tom, because like as soon as it happened, it was almost like a feeling of clarity. It was like, it's over. You don't have to live like this anymore.
And how old were you then?
So I would have been I was 33, 33 years old, yeah. And I'd been drinking alcoholically at that point. Alcoholically drinking since I was 16, I'd say. I mean, I was doing the whole thing at like 12, 13, down the park, around people's houses. Normally it was around my house that they would come round, but it wasn't the solitary drinking on my own until I was about 16.
Something about the 30s as well, like because people, I don't know
Mm.
whether this is this misconception that you should grow up by the time you're 30, but I look at 30. I looked at Roy's pictures. He put up pictures the other day of him in his 30s. He looks better now. He looks unbelievable now, doesn't he?
Yeah,
And there's something about the 30s where you struggle, right? I mean, I struggled in my 30s. I
yeah.
know, and everyone who I've spoken to, don't know what it is, whether it's the transition, but yeah, like being, you said, in your 40s,
Yeah.
how does that feel different now to when you were
Oh,
going through that?
I was at barbecue yesterday saying to people, like, you could not drag me kicking and screaming back to my 20s. I would not go back there. It wasn't just the chaos, yeah. And even my 30s, I still had that worrying about what other people think, not feeling comfortable myself, yeah. So I think that not only am I hotter now, I'm a better person now than I was back then. So people like talk up how great it was to be young, but I thought it was shit looking back. I mean, there were great times, obviously crazy times, but being settled spiritually, mentally in your 40s is just the best thing ever.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. Yeah, and so you, this sobriety being enough for you. You
Mm,
mentioned having your accident. You had that moment.
yeah.
Was that enough for you? So you'd come out of that crash. You'd maybe then thought, right, I can't do this anymore. I need to be a new me. Was that enough for you? Did you have to go for anything else to evolve to where you were right now?
Yeah, completely. So I went straight into AA, got myself another crappy job at a call centre, but I was so, they call it the pink cloud, right, in AA. You're so excited that you've got this new community of people and you're doing sobriety, and you know everything seems so magical, and that can carry you for a while.
Hmm.
You're going to meetings, and I didn't even have A levels at the time, so I went to college because I decided I want to go to university and do criminology. So all these things and completely new life, completely new mindset. So that can carry you for a while, and you can kind of surf on that wave
Yeah,
and be all right. But I would say that genuinely, probably between my fifth and seventh year of sobriety was the hardest.
right.
Yeah, because if you've had trauma in your childhood as well, everything you've been using, that substance or that alcohol to push down, starts coming back up. And when it comes back up, you've not got any chemical way of suppressing it.
Hmm.
So you've got to sit with the pain and process it, and not try and pretend it's not there by distracting yourself with drinking and booze and stuff. So there's that. And also, like, I was what they call a dry drunk. So yeah, I wasn't taking in any drugs or alcohol, completely sober, but I was so like mentally, spiritually, emotionally bankrupt. I was having suicidal thoughts. Like, I'd be driving and doing calculations in my head, like in the middle of the night on the M6, like, oh, if I hit that barrier, would I be going fast enough to kill myself? Would people believe that it was an accident? Probably, because it's me driving. I'm
Yeah,
not a
yeah.
very good driver, but yeah, so I would just have these crazy thoughts and these fantasies about suicide because I was so miserable. I was so unhappy, even though I was going through the motions and going through my life. So yeah, taking the alcohol away on its own isn't enough.
We had some terrible news the other day. I won't mention about who it is, but we had some terrible news. Someone who very close to Roy lost their lives to mental health, and I think it's a real reminder of how precious it is, your life, and how
Yeah,
important it is to check in on others. And actually, it also was to me and Roy how also mental health doesn't always have to be linked to sobriety, right? You haven't always got to have an addiction to be feeling in that way.
Yeah.
What advice for any male or female would you have who are watching this who maybe are in a dark place, like what you said that you have? What advice would you give to them?
I think the importance of recognizing that people can have suicidal thoughts and suicidal ideations, but not actually intend on acting on it. Sometimes they do intend on acting on it. And people just need to be allowed to speak on whatever they're thinking and feeling, especially men. Like up north, we've got something called Andy's Man Club and things like that that encourage men to speak more. Um, it would be reach out and do speak. Don't be embarrassed. Just say your truth, because at the end of the day, as long as you're truthful, you get things off your chest. But it can be difficult. And also, some people in AA that are really militant with it say, oh, you shouldn't take antidepressants. I say take whatever you need to, do whatever you need to do, just to tide you over, to get you to a place where you're feeling better mentally, and you can do things like exercise, diet, anything spiritual.
We're gonna come off a little bit off topic with you, but we're gonna stay on the topic.
Mm.
You've just made me really think about something. Do you, when we speak to Roy, so my question to you is does addiction have to be beaten with another addiction? So I'll give you an example. Roy smashes his addiction daily by gym.
Mm.
So it's like his new addiction is gym, boxing, training. Um, Jeff Hardy, who the Hardy Boys recently wore our shirt, which is amazing. He spoke publicly about he has to do ice therapy, literally jump in ice baths.
Yeah.
Can you, as a female, can you relate to that, or do you think that's more of a male thing, or do you think it's different? Like, not one shoe size fits all. Do you feel like someone suffering from recovery has to almost have a positive addiction to beat a negative addiction, or do you think that's not the case?
Yeah, I mean, it can be the case. It can work negatively or positively. There are people that swap one addiction for another.
Hmm.
It could be addiction to alcohol, to addiction to sex or porn or shopping, so another negative thing, or gambling. Or it can be something that's dressed up as a positive. Like some people I've found, go into AA, and AA becomes their addiction. They become so focused on that. Anything, and I say this about drinking, because I have people that are sober curious come to me and ask me about it. Anything you're doing, whether it be drinking or whatever, anything that's causing negative effects on your day-to-day life, whether it be your relationships with other people, and for some reason you can't seem to stop it. Maybe you can stop for a little while, tell people you're stopping, but you can't stop long term. That is a problem area in whatever you're doing. So yeah, you can swap one addiction for another. I think mine is probably my job at the moment. Like,
Can you
if
go into a bit more about your job at the minute? Because it's
yeah,
amazing. I mean, we spoke about Machiko,
yeah,
the guest later, and she's going to tell her story, which is amazing, by the way.
yeah,
But quite similar, really, in a way, where you've gone from here to what you're doing now is incredible, right?
yeah. So I did my criminology degree, and then typical alcoholic thinking, like delusions of grandeur. Really, I just wanted to leave my life down south and go back to my recovery community, which is like my family
Mhm.
around Morecambe. I could have just moved and got another job, but no, I had this big idea, like, oh, I'm going to go and do a master's degree, right? So I started my master's up north. Absolutely hated it. I was so solitary, sitting, reading, just doing work. Wanted to be around the community and helping people. So I quit my masters and ended up getting this job for a rehab. So it's a network of rehabs, but the job that I do is very much in the community. So I support prison leavers with resettlement,
Wow. Yeah.
and it's all work around recovery because they have to be in recovery to be a client. And actually, where I work is a LERO, so it's a lived experience recovery organisation. So it is a requirement to work for that organisation that you are in recovery
Oh,
from
wow.
addiction.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah. Is
So,
it really rewarding?
oh, the way it's rewarded me, being that it's a Lero, it's taken me from being in a place of really like self pity. So a lot of my depression, like when I was a dry drunk, was self pity based. Like, why has this happened to me? Why was my mum an addict? Why did she let all these things happen to me? Why did she neglect me? Which is, it's a big fucking deep wound, that, when it's your mum. I mean, we'll relate to that. But I was in such fucking wallowing in self pity with everything. But it allowed me to take responsibility and also realize that everything that society said was wrong with me, everything that I thought was wrong with me, I wasted all these years of addiction, don't have a family, don't have children, oh no. All of these things became my superpower. because I'm using my not only using my lived experience of being second generation addicts to help others, also my criminology degree. I can understand legal policies. I can go into a meeting and advocate for my clients because I've learnt the language of how to speak um, in regards to a criminological way. I can talk about theories and understand legal policy and things like that. So I can use that to advocate for my clients that don't have a voice, because the criminal justice system is such a blunt instrument. It's fucked, isn't it?
And let's go into a little bit more about your family, if you don't mind.
Yes,
So,
fine.
do you mind telling us about? You mentioned how you got here, and being a second generation addict.
Yeah.
Do you mind explaining a bit more about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, it ties in with what I always say at the beginning of my main shares when I do a main share AA. Like, the reason why I was able to start drinking so young was because of my family situation. So, the first time I got drunk enough to have a hangover, be sick, I was 8 years old. I
Wow.
had the day off primary school the next day. And while I'm getting this drunk, my mum's there in the room, you know. Um, and even then, I knew that I liked being drunk. I knew that my life was something I wanted to escape from, and I knew that no one was coming for me. So I got a taste for it. I wasn't drinking constantly at 8 years old, but I got a taste for it at a very young age, and that's because, my mum, yes, she did have her heroin addiction, but she was also mentally, she was very kind of unaware. She was a hippie, so she, I went to my first Glastonbury when I was 3 months old.
Wow.
Yeah, so she had
I thought taking my daughter to Ibiza at 6 was bad enough.
I've got you beat
Yeah,
there.
that is beat. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was all hippie fairs and all that, and then it just got dark, and um, I've lost two stepfathers to overdose. One of them, I wasn't that fond of, but the other one was literally my best friend,
Right.
and he lost his life to addiction when he was 2 years clean.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was in a wheelchair. He did his legs in. I think he was jumping out of a window in like a high rise, trying to get away from the Rozzers, and he ended up doing his back in, and then he was in a wheelchair. And he used to like sell the big issue in his wheelchair,
Right.
and he was such a character. Like, I was telling someone about this the other day. I would push him uptown. So at this point, like when I first moved back to Ipswich, I lived in the flat.
Apologies, Norwich fans.
I lived in the flat like with John and my mum. There's me
Yeah.
and two junkies like living in the flat, and then
Wow.
eventually they moved in the flat below, and I lived in. So we were all in the same block basically. So it's absolute fucking bedlam. But I'd push him uptown, and this is before he got his motorised wheelchair, and there'd be like people all around, and then suddenly start going, "She hits me, my carer, she hurts me," and like spazzing out and pretending to be like mentally retarded. And he's in a wheelchair, and he's all skinny, and I'm like, "Shut up, John, shut up!" And he'll go, "McDonald's, take me to McDonald's." He was so fucking funny, but he was the only adult I'd ever had in my life that had never lied to me.
Right.
Like, he would scream at my mum like, "Poppy's not a fucking idiot, Sarah," because my mum would constantly, never took any responsibility for it, would always try and hide things. If I said to her now,
Did you? Do you mind me asking? Did you have a strained relationship with your mother?
yes, yeah, it's been on and off for years. At points we were very, very close. It's like anything. It's like an abusive relationship. I was a domestic abuse practitioner for 2 years. If they were horrible all the time, it would be a lot easier. But we had such good times. We went to
Mm-hmm.
Greece together and all this kind of thing. And so it is difficult. But if I said to her now anything, I stopped saying anything about it, Tom, because she would just say, "What are you talking about? You had a great childhood. Think of all the parties you had." Parties where they're full of adults that are fucked. Yeah, there's an excuse for get people around to get fucked. But yeah, I mean, so John, my stepdad, he moved away to Hull to get sober. He was going to have his legs amputated so he could walk again and
Right.
prosthetics. He was so excited. So he'd been clean for about 2 years, and I could show you pictures like the difference between when he was all skinny, because he was a crackhead as well.
Yeah.
So when he was all skinny and cracked out, and he was vulnerable, so he used to get cuckooed a lot. And from that to when he was healthy, when he'd moved away, because often, and we do that in my job, you move someone away from their area where they use in, where they commit crimes in, where they know all the people.
Show me your environment. I show you what you are, basically. Yeah, to a degree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So he moved up to Hull. He was sober for 2 years, clean and sober. Came back for Christmas to Ipswich. It's my first year of university in Lancashire. I was coming back for Christmas as well. He came back a couple of days early, and normally I would talk to him like every couple of days at least. So it wasn't unusual to not hear from him for a couple of days. I got a phone call from my mum saying, "I've got to tell you something, John's dead." And I didn't believe her. You can't really believe what my mum says anyway. I just didn't fucking believe her. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? He'd come back early, hooked up with some of his old pals, and he'd ended up doing some gear, some heroin, died. Died in a house, and they left him there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and that's one of the reasons why my job's so important, because I work a lot around the mentoring with addiction aspect of it.
Can I ask you about that? Because for people who are watching, we've had people check in with Sobriety Club who have sent messages where they've been in sobriety for 3 years and they've broken it.
Yeah.
And you get that they feel like they've failed. Have you got any advice for people who are maybe I'm not saying the extremes of what happened there, that's tragic, but anyone who has done so well and they just have a slip up, anything that you could say to them?
It would be coming from a professional point of view, because I'm so lucky that I've never relapsed. 8 years.
It's amazing, yeah.
And
Well
I've never
done.
relapsed. But I think what it was is because I was so strong in my defiance in my drinking. No one could tell me a fucking thing about my drinking. I was fucking.
Roy's like that.
Yeah.
Someone asked me the other day about Roy. Do you think you got no, absolutely no chance? He's literally there's no way he'll drink again. Let me tell you, and I get that from you as well. Like,
yeah. But the other way, me and Roy were the other way. Like, I never did the whole thing of like begging partners. Oh, I'm sorry, I'll change. I was like, well, you know who I am. If you don't like it, you know where the fucking door is. You know, I was so defiant and so resolute in how I was then. I was fucking rock and roll queen. Do you know what I mean? It was who I was.
Yeah.
So,
I'm lucky I didn't bump into you, because I was obviously over the road in a good place where all the good boys were. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
So I went from being like 100% one way to 100% the other way.
Yeah.
And I've never done that dipping in and out of sobriety. And I know lots that have. And in the fellowship, you know, it's such a strong community, and we do get people that relapse and then go back in. And I always just give them advice that this, like, I had a friend who relapsed recently, and I just said to her, look, this isn't the end of your story. It's just a chapter.
Yeah.
And another thing I said is that, you know, we never lose in life. We never lose. We only either win or learn. So every time that you do slip up or you fuck up, just take the lesson from it.
Do you also think so? When I was speaking to Roy, like Roy's got like life education. You know, like what you said about you cannot this evolving parts to your life. You could never get anything from experience. Experience is key, right?
Yeah.
And that's why when you hear Roy talk, he's very educated because he's been through it himself, right? Now, how has your profession and you studying helped actually you personally with your own life? Has that helped?
Yeah, I mean, with getting my degree, it gave me a sense of feeling respected, because I never really had an alcohol problem. I had a poppy problem that was centered around low self-worth. You know, if your primary caregiver.
Well, how amazing is that, by the way? The fact that you can, listen, let's get out to a lot of people. The fact that you can be so honest about it was a you problem, because, I think you've hit the nail on the head. The amount of people that blame the actual drink.
Yeah.
The drink's not actually the problem, right?
No.
It actually starts with all of us.
Yeah.
And that's amazing to hear. Like, that you can just say that off the bat. It's amazing, really. And I think that's part of the reason why people do recovery, that accountability, right? Would you agree with that?
That's 100% it. You're only using your drug of choice, whatever it be, sex, gambling, drugs, money, food. You're using it to try and fill a void inside.
Yeah.
The internal void, you know. And if you've grown up and your primary caregiver, your mother, neglects you, doesn't meet your needs, you know, of course you're going to have a self-worth problem, because that started from the day you're born. You know, and you see other people and their mothers are so loving and they do all the things they're supposed to do, so it starts there. But yeah, it was for Poppy, the self-worth was the issue. You know, I always say that, like, alcohol wasn't the enemy. Like, the final boss in the video game of Poppy was a self-worth issue. You know, the Dr. Robotnik at the end of Sonic.
Yeah, what a game, by the way. What a game that was.
Yeah, good old retro games.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, so it's just, that's what I had to combat. And there's only been a couple of times, because I've always been judged on the way I look, and I'm very like chatty and whatever. But inside of me, there was always a fucking massive nerd.
You know, you said you don't want to revisit your old job too much, but when just go back to that, did you actually like how was you versus Poppy in them moments? Well, I'd be interested. Like, were you struggling working in that job mentally, or was it just you switched off, went to work? Like, how did that work?
When I was dancing as a
Yeah, yeah,
stripper,
yeah.
it's a weird one because I had some of my best times working in that clubs and met some of my best like female friendships. And there are different types of clients, and customers. And some of them, yeah, you are completely objectified. And there's like two sides to me. And I always say, like, I was like, about a year ago when I was on Hinge, and I was saying like, what you see is not what you get with me. I'm like the nerdy goth girl at school trapped inside the body of the high school cheerleader. Like, I look one way, but inside I'm a massive fucking nerd.
Right.
And I love Greek mythology.
I'm Dr. Robotnik.
Dr. Robotnik,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
Terminator series. I'm
Yeah.
like, so there's always been that two sides of me. And doing a job like that, you do get a lot of customers if you get your regular customers that just want to talk to you
Yeah, yeah.
for a couple of hours, and they'll pay
Expensive chat, right?
an expensive chat, and you become like a therapist. And
Yeah.
so in a lot of ways, if you've got that intellect and you're able to talk to people, you'll make good money.
Of course.
There are girls that I call the professionals that.
Can you teach referees, by the way, football referees? If there's any football referees watching, can you teach them how to talk to people? Because they struggle with that. These refs
Really,
nowadays. Yeah.
I could try. I don't know if they want to
Give
talk.
yellow cards out, but they don't talk enough.
I don't know if they want to talk the way I talk. Bloody hell.
Well, I think that helps. Conversation helps, right?
But that's a great thing about my job, is that because I work for a rehab and it's all rehab culture and we've all got to talk about our feelings, we have a Monday morning mandatory meeting called the check-in, where we all just get on if you're there, you're there. If not, you get on the Teams meeting and we all just have a fucking vent. And someone's like, oh, I'm feeling suicidal this week. And I was like, oh, I think my mum's doing crack. And it's like, but that's like a mandatory thing. And like, people are always talking about their feelings to each other because it's like rehab culture, and it's brilliant.
Revisiting Roy, I think, well, as we spoke before the show, there's a lot of the males that we've had on have related to this one moment of awakening.
Yeah.
And I think it's not the same for you, right? You spoke about multiple moments that got you to this.
Yeah.
Is there a difference? I mean, before you explain yours, is there a difference between male and females, or do you think it's just dependent on the person?
Well, I think in general, women are a lot more multifaceted and multi-layered. We have many different.
What are you trying to say?
We've got many different layers of needs. Tom.
Yeah.
Whereas men are quite simple creatures. You feed them, water them, sex them, and But
well, can you apply that to Roy? Because Roy, I am going to throw you. Listen, because he's 2 years tomorrow, he deserves to be thrown under publicly, right? Doesn't he? So, Roy, we think you've done great. We want to congratulate you, by the way. You're going to get your day tomorrow where we absolutely milk your 2 years. Isn't that right? We're going to give it large to him tomorrow.
Absolutely.
So well done, mate. But what I wish as a mate, I love this gym and that you've got this new addiction, but maybe the sex one, this needs to come back for him, because Poppy Soraya put a video out about dating, about Roy. Well, not only did his DMs blow up, sobriety clubs, which I have to run, so I felt like Cilla Black, running DMs, and I just wish the old boy would just go out and, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Try and find happiness. Do you know what I mean? What do you think? Maybe he's too old now. I don't know.
He might be too old. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. But Roy, if you're watching, come on, liven yourself up, son.
But that's another layer of it, Tom. Is like taking away that, because I think we all have that like need to be with someone and we're focused. There's a lot of women that are kind of like very male-centered, male-focused, and coming into my own in this last period of my sobriety is just when I'm so happy. I've got a boyfriend now. That's very recently, but I'm so happy being on my own that I don't need anyone else, and finding that happiness on your own. I believe that if you can't be completely 100% fulfilled on your own, then anyone you have a relationship with is just another fix.
I do, I absolutely do agree with that. But I also probably want to go the other way with it, because we mentioned environment. Sometimes I spoke about my partner about this. Sometimes you do get a bit of luck in life where you find someone, and sometimes that can force you into an environment where you can heal yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I would probably not counter argue, but I think they go hand in hand to a degree. I do agree with what you said, by the way. I think if you don't sort yourself out, you could get put in any environment and mess up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But I think they probably, a bit like what you said about your stepdad, actually sometimes you have to take them out of an environment. You know. But then actually, like Roy, going back to Roy before we move on here, Roy literally got his new place, didn't he? he's living next to a pub, and the guy don't want to drink. I mean, it's so good, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's remarkable. The fact that he can be next to a pub and not touch an alcoholic drink is such a big thing, right?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I
You know,
go out all the time, go out to pubs or go out in the evening, and I never get tempted. I never ever feel like I'm going to drink again. And they say in AA, oh, you're always sick. You've got to keep on top of your your AA, your fellowship work and everything. But I genuinely feel, and this is going against AA principles, I genuinely feel like I will not drink again. Sorry, but I
great,
do.
great. That's brilliant, isn't it? Amazing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your car crash,
Yeah.
but you also mentioned there were multiple moments that got you to where you were, not just one.
Yeah.
What were the others?
So the car crash was number one, and that was what stopped the physical act of me taking the drink to my lips and drinking and not doing drugs. So that took the chemicals away from me. And then I mentioned to you as well, didn't I? You have the first couple of years of sobriety and everything's really new and exciting, and that wears off and life sets in. And then I had my period where I was really, really quite mentally dark. Like I call it the void. That type of depression where someone could have knocked on my door and either told me that I'd won the lottery or my entire family was dead, and my reaction would have been exactly the same, just blank
Wow.
void. I preferred the type of depression with all the dark thoughts, and like, because I'm quite gothy, so I'm into all that dark thoughts and shit like that. But I was not so much void depression, but I was very, very spiritually, emotionally bankrupt. This was probably maybe about a year ago, and I was driving on the M6 back from down south, and it was late at night. I was listening to a 80s and 90s hair metal playlist.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and all of my spiritual awakenings have got a lot of music tied into them,
Right.
which is a bit strange. Well,
Still, I think people. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think
Yeah.
music stirs the soul, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has everyone relates to music. I think. I hope so. If not,
Fucking
sort
weird if you
yourselves
don't.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was driving, and I used to have like suicidal fantasies. Like if I read in the newspaper a story, or it's not a newspaper anymore, is it? It's like a feed on your phone. A story about how tragic beloved person dies getting hit by a fucking massive lorry and they're dead. My first reaction to them would be envy, because I would think this
Wow.
person's had an out of this thing that we call life, and it's not got any of the stigma of suicide attached to it. They've just been killed by a lorry, and everyone's going to be like, oh, how tragic, how loved they are. And they've not had to kill themselves, and then have everyone treat their memory with the stigma of that.
And this was like up to a year ago.
This was about a year ago. I was having these thoughts, so I would be envious of people that got killed in like car accidents. And
So can we fast forward?
Yeah.
So at what point did you come out of that?
that's it. I was driving on the M6, and it was late at night. There was no one else around, and I was doing calculations in my head, like if I hit that barrier over there, would it kill me?
Wow.
There's a higher one down there. Maybe how fast would I have to be going? Would people believe it's an accident? Of course,
Oh wow.
probably not, because they would, because I'm a bad driver. But so I'm having all these thoughts, and they're fantasies. I think it's important to acknowledge that people can have suicidal fantasies, but not have any intention or solid plan to go through with it. And it's important that people can be honest about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Without being told, oh, you're dramatic, or you're attention seeking. So I'm driving and I'm listening to my my late 80s, early 90s hair metal playlist. So you've got some Guns N' Roses.
Did Meatloaf make it? Oh.
Yes,
He
yes, Meatloaf. I love Meatloaf.
He did make it, yeah. I was gonna say, it wasn't really a proper playlist because he went and there was yeah.
Yeah, he was more 70s, but then he had that big one in the 90s.
Yeah.
That big old one, yeah. So, and then a song by Def Leppard called Hysteria
Right.
came on, and I was just listening to this, and I was just like, the spirit of the 80s came over me. Right. And when I explain this to people, like, what came over you? The spirit of the 80s came over me, and I was just like, this sounds so fucking 80s.
Taylor, just Google that, mate, when you get a minute. Yeah.
The spirit of the 80s came over me because I was listening to this song called Hysteria by Def Leppard, and it was just like, this sounds so fucking 80s. I'm really into my grunge music, right? So my heart belongs to grunge predominantly, and that's all very dark and gritty.
Yeah.
And it just made me think, like, how optimistic and like just the optimistic vibe of the 80s when everyone was just living their lives and not worrying about shit before like grunge came in and made everything really dark. So I was listening to this song and I just suddenly felt like, do you know what? Everything's going to be all right. Def
Yeah,
Leppard
yeah.
have told me through this song.
Def Leppard, we'll tag them in. Def Leppard getting tagged in. We want an appreciation.
Yeah, so it's just the way that this song sounds so fucking 80s, and thinking about how carefree and optimistic and everything was in the 80s. And I suddenly just felt like everything's going to be all right from hearing this song. And then I've obviously, I don't think you know me on Facebook, but I'm a fucking Facebook menace. Like every like deranged thought I have goes on Facebook. Some
Right.
of it's really serious and
Yeah, yeah.
sobriety based, and or spirituality based, and a lot of it's just fucking shite. Like just chatting absolute shite. But I love it. I don't.
But it has to come out. Yeah.
It's to entertain me a year later when it comes on my memories more
Yeah.
than anything. So I like did a Facebook status about this, and then when I got home, I wasn't even that much of a Def Leppard fan at this point. I liked them, you know, everyone knows Pour Some Sugar on Me. If you've ever worked in a
Oh
strip
wow.
club, you've
Never
listened.
been. Never been.
If you've ever
Never been.
worked in a strip club in any capacity at all, whether it be barman,
Well, it's a
doorman,
Las Vegas classic that as well, by the way. Yeah. Yeah.
you've heard it
Amazing.
every fucking shift you've ever worked.
Amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Because so everyone knows that song. But I went home and I did that very same night, stayed up till like 4 in the morning doing this deep dive on Def Leppard, and learnt their whole story. And one of them died of alcoholism.
Wow.
Yeah, and I watched this documentary on them, and his ex fiance, who was a supermodel, and she broke my heart talking about how this guy had every. It was in one. People don't really understand how big Def Leppard were. Like the album Hysteria, the only thing that kept that from number one for however many weeks was Michael Jackson's Thriller, which was quite a big record if I remember correctly. So
The
that was
biggest.
huge. They were huge, and there's this group of lads from Sheffield. Yeah, and one of them died from alcoholism. He had it. He was getting married to a supermodel. He was in one of the biggest
But
bands.
don't want to interrupt you, but guess what the old Instagram music's going to be for your episode as well.
Yes, definitely some Def Leppard. Yeah, so he died from alcoholism. One of them ripped his arm off and in a car accident and had to learn how to drum with one arm. And so I did this whole deep dive on him. And like, I've never been tested for autism, but I think there's a bit of autism in there somewhere because I become so obsessed with like certain
I think
concepts.
it's because everyone's got it now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
yeah. So that spiritual awakening, just to make your one question into like a 10-minute diatribe about Def Leppard.
I've got two questions here that I think that I do think you've answered, but we're just going to touch on it. So we've got responsibility versus blame, and then so you did mention about poor Poppy,
Yeah,
and then you realised no, it's actually I need to sort myself out.
yeah,
I want you to just touch on that bit, but then and also you mentioned being sober but still being miserable with it.
yeah,
What's to just summarise them to finish on them two
yeah.
points? What advice would you give for anyone who maybe is there going, well, I've been sober and it's rubbish?
Well, that ties perfectly into my final spiritual awakening, which was a few months ago. And that was just taking the responsibility of, I can't blame it on anything else. I have to, yeah, you can have a shit life and you can have all these things impacting you, but you have to pull yourself out of it. I could, this job did so much for me because it gave me a real, I know it's a cliche, but it gave me a real purpose. It turned all the shit I'd been through, growing up around addiction, being an addict myself, it turned all of that with the criminology, degree on top of that into something that I can genuinely every day I can help people. Like it's not just picking them up from the prison gates, taking them to probation. It's taking them to meetings. It's taking them to we do CrossFit together and things like
Did you
that.
see Roy's post the other month? The some survey come back about a job for him,
Yeah.
and it come back he got offered a prison guard. And he was like, I got the first hand experience. I know all their names.
Well, yeah, he knows everyone.
Yeah, but that made me laugh. But maybe, bro, that is the
Yeah, the guy I work with, Ross, like because we work with HMP Preston and Lancaster Farms, and he's been in Preston as an inmate in there, so he has the same sort of experience. But we're all lived experience. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just the question was taking responsibility, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And also, like this last spiritual awakening has been all about spiritualism, belief in divine timing. If you get rejected by a person, thing, organisation, I was rejected by the police over jobs a couple of times. It's just redirecting you to what's meant for you. Sometimes it's protecting you. It's protecting you from something that could have been really bad. most of the time it's just redirecting you.
It's interesting though, because I've been through that myself.
Mm.
You're so invested in something that, like my dad's got a famous saying: if you stand too close to the elephant, all you can see is grey.
Yeah,
And
that's good. That.
I'm the biggest, probably the culprit of that. And I managed to get this emotional attachment here, while everyone around me's going, just get your head out of your backside and take a look around, and there's a bigger thing going on. And actually, I've been through a bit of that myself. And actually, there is a big wide world out there, right? And
Yeah.
sometimes, actually, you're best not being around certain people. And that sounds horrible. You're best just not being around them because it don't bring the best out of you.
It's 100% true, and I've
know.
had to take responsibility for protecting my peace. I've walked away from money in relationships. My ex owes me £3,000 to protect my peace. I've walked away from it. I've walked away from people, things. Realizing that I had my peace, had my, and this has happened in the 7th year of sobriety, that I finally felt that peace and that confidence in that I can make the right decisions for myself. I can be a good person. I can try my best to live my life with integrity. And if I am wrong, I can correct myself and put myself onto a better course of action. And all of that belief in myself just happened within like the last year. And it's all based on spiritual principles like divine timing, like I explained before, but also belief that you are exactly where you're meant to be at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's going to be all right, Tom, because you are meant to be where you're meant to be, and there is a path for you, and that just takes all the worry away.
Yeah.
And it's that, along with I've been through so much shit, I'm going to be all right no matter what happens. So whatever happens, nothing can touch me. We never lose. We only win or learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. And that fits quite nicely to the next question, which is, you say 7 years in?
I'm 8 years
8.
now. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Sorry, 8. Amazing. What are the things that maybe people don't see in this recovery journey that people would never be able to relate to because they haven't lived it?
Yeah. It's not all sunshine and rainbows. Like I mentioned earlier about, well, they say, don't they, best thing about sobriety is you get your feelings back. The worst thing about sobriety is you get your feelings back. If you've gone through trauma in your life, everything you've been using drugs and alcohol to suppress, all the memories start coming back. I still get flashbacks now. Not as much as I used to, but probably once every couple of weeks I'll have a memory just come back that's unlocked. And my memories are like in HD as well. I remember everything. So once it's back, it's back. So there's that, everything you've been using the alcohol to suppress comes back, but now it's in HD because you're sober and it's coming back. So
I said about trauma as like having this box inside you, and your body and your mind have this wonderful way of putting a lid on it and burying it deep in you, right? And I don't know whether you agree with this, but I'm just trying to relate to my experience. And then whenever you take drink or a substance, that lifts the lid off it.
Yeah.
But is it best actually having the lid lifted off it and just facing it without substance? Like, is there something about just taking it head on and dealing with it, or do you not agree with that?
Yeah, I do think you do need to, because you need to. Okay, I'm going to say something really dark and gothy now because that's what I'm like. You need to plunge your fist into the wound, pull out a fistful of necrotic flesh, throw it on the desk, dissect it and look at it in a controlled way, be that with a therapist or with your sponsor going through the steps. And I'm not it's the steps or nothing, fellowship or nothing kind of sobriety advocate. I believe you do your way as long as it's healthy.
Yeah, and Roy said that. Roy said about AA, he loves it, didn't work for him.
Yeah.
And everyone, I've heard people in here that said AA worked for them. I think you're right. I think it's no shoe size fits all, right? It's just find your way.
That's it. You do whatever's right for you, but you have to plunge your fist in and pull out that fistful of necrotic flesh and throw it down. Because, does everyone want to do that? Probably not. But
do you think you have to be ready to do that, or do you think you just got to do it?
I think you have to be in the right. I say that you have to be in the right headspace. They say, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe some people need a bit of a push into therapy or whatever. Some people, like we talked about the difference between men and women, might take some people more time to open up. But you need to do it, because what happens with necrotic flesh, if it's left in your system, is it will poison your blood, and it will poison you and go through your whole system, and it will be that barrier keeping you from your perfect job, your perfect relationship. Not perfect, because nothing's perfect.
I can even relate to that about we spoke about environments. I found myself becoming the thing I didn't like.
Yeah.
When you're around people I call them death eaters.
I love that.
They suck
Death
they
eaters.
suck the life out of you. When you start off with being fresh with this, you battle death eaters. You got fight in you, and you know, like, you either get stabbed in the front, stabbed in the back, but there's a thing called death by 1,000 cuts, right? And what these death eaters do, they death by 1,000 cut you, and what they end up, they suck the life out of you. And when you got nothing left, you end up becoming one of them.
Yeah.
That's what I've learned.
Yeah.
So actually, going back to this, get yourself out of that environment. The environment's big, right? Whether it be work, relationship, addiction. I think actually, A, removing yourself out of the environment, but B, being able to do what you said, which is cut yourself wide open, drag it out of you, chuck it all on the table, and face it, is massive, right? I think that's probably. But how do you get people to do it? I don't know. No one's, you know.
It's a hard one. I mean, in AA they would call it the steps. There are so many different avenues to sobriety. It might be going to a therapist. It might be that you just decide one day you don't want to drink anymore. Maybe you get into your fitness, or having other people around you that have the same experience as you is vital. Having people to communicate with. It's like with AA. Like, I've been in the fellowship now for 8 years, and they say that AA is like the mafia, right? Because wherever you go in the world, you've got family, but if you leave, you die.
Yeah.
But you can walk into the rooms of AA, and you know that everyone, at least some people in there, are going to understand exactly where you're coming from, and people talk freely. And I've seen grown men.
But it's belonging, right?
It's belonging.
That's why it's no different to why Roy come up with the idea about Sobriety Club, right? And that is the same principles, right?
Exactly.
You be a belonging, a sense of belonging to a club, to something that you share with people.
Yeah.
Representing.
Exactly. Fellowship comes in many different forms. It might be down the gym with a group of lads. It might be whatever. But that human contact, having someone to share your experiences with who understands it. They say, focus on the similarities, not the differences, when you go and listen to an AA main share, because there will be some similarities. It might be that this one's black, this one's white, this one's this age, this one's that age, but the experience is all very similar. We're all responding to childhood trauma to some extent, or at least responding to some kind of feeling of a void within us that we're trying to fill.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, yeah.
And the feeling of the void, I hate to break it to you all at home, but it's an inside job. It can't be filled with any person, relationship, substance, compulsion, or thing. You have to fill it yourself.
Yeah, I was speaking to you before the show about me with my mum. I don't mind speaking about it, but I've got to an age where people are going to me, well, why don't you see her? And I'm thinking, my God, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? Really, if you apologies if you love your mum, but I'm like, I generally, like, I couldn't think of anything. Well, that sounds terrible, right? And I get that you gave birth to me. I get all of that, right? Don't I get it. Thanks for that. But like, I just cut, and there's no hatred. I don't wish ill of somebody, but no thanks, mate. I don't. And that sounds terrible, really, doesn't it? But just can't really get my head around it.
People that haven't been through that kind of thing can't get their head around it. It's your mum. Yeah. Congratulations, nice one. You've had a lovely mum and you've had a lovely upbringing. Not everyone's like that. There are people, that we were saying, like before the show, there are people that just shouldn't have had children.
Yeah.
Just shouldn't have done it. And it would mean that we wouldn't be here. But
she didn't even get me the right sticker album. I look back and I was trying to think of a reason to go and have a chat with her. I was thinking, what can I bring up? Because she used to work in a place like did stickers, and she even got the wrong stickers. So I thought, I can't even speak about stickers.
You know, call Childline on that.
Yeah, so exactly. Right, I should have done. Actually, I might do. Yeah, best you emigrate, love.
Yeah.
No, but yeah. So going back to just when you were like under substance, right? Is there anything that you miss from that life? Be honest.
Yeah. So one of my favourite sober celebrities is someone called Brandon Novak, who used to be in Jackass, and he's got some great phrases. And one of his things he talks about is, let's not try and deny that we had some great fucking times when we were drinking and doing a shitload of drugs. I had some great times, when I was in London and I was going to gigs all the time, and because I worked in the music industry, we just got passes to everywhere. And I'm going to go and visit a friend in a few days, and You know, there's certain people that we were just fucking wild and we had the fucking best time. You know, it wasn't always me at home on my own drinking, waking up covered in vomit. It wasn't always like that, especially when I was younger. And there are times.
Well, our generation was a bit different as well. I think we'll probably sound old now, but we didn't have that dopamine hit off mobile phones either, did we?
No.
Like you got to think, you'd have to go to a phone box or knock on someone's door back in the day, really. So it's like you'd get this sense of, oh, I've got to go out. And then when you went out, it was all £1 a drink up to midnight, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you'd get like 20 Jaeger bombs for 20 quid. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that cost you 20 quid for one now, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, we were getting served. I was talking about this to my friend the other night. We were getting served in pubs and bars and from the co-op buying booze at like 13 years old.
Yeah.
You know, you'd either go down the park or you'd go around someone else. Normally, it would be my house that people would pile into because my mum was like upstairs gouged out or whatever. Yeah. You know, so it would be like a free house.
Well, speaking to a friend that did this, by the way, you could go out in Norwich, spend 20 quid for 20 drinks, and you could have a chat with a stripper for 20 quid.
You could.
At 40 quid.
Yeah.
Cheap night. Do you know what I mean? That's a friend that's told me that, by the way.
It would only be a chat on a slow night, otherwise, you know.
How important is purpose? You mentioned it. You mentioned your purpose.
Yeah.
I mentioned mine with my wonderful partner and my child and my football, etc. But everyone's got one. Roy mentioned his.
Yeah.
Do you believe that's one of the most single important things, having a purpose?
Yeah, because like I said before, you can take the substance away, you can take the drink away. Until I found that purpose in my job that I do now, none of that means anything. I was still miserable, you know. And I had these ideas after my criminology degree. Oh, I'm gonna join the police and stuff. And I had this like idealistic idea of being the change I seek. But now I'm glad I'm on the other side with the lived experience people, because there is a divide between the two, and we work in conjunction with the police. You know, imagine if I'd done that job and I'd have to hide my being a recovering alcoholic from most of my colleagues. Now that is my selling point. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why I got this job. Mm-hmm. So I had that, and it's also brought into power the fact that I did my degree, you know, those years I spent doing the degree. And the funny thing is, my dissertation was actually on desistance from crime, exactly what I do now. So I interviewed 9 ex-offenders in the community.
Wow.
On the pathways to desisting from crime. That's a fancy word for giving up crime, criminological word. So that's completely related to what I do now. It's almost like everything's aligned, put in place for me to be able to do this job.
And you said about now, you've almost gone from self-pity to empowering others, right?
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
And which hand in hand, your experience, your education, your job has all come, like you said, everything happened for a reason, right? It's really fitting what you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, if I log on to my student finance England account, I've got 60 grand sitting in there waiting for me to pay. But that is not worthless, but that is nothing compared to my lived experience, which is an education you can't fucking buy. Mm-hmm. You know, and I paid for it in blood, sweat, tears, you know, depression, Def Leopards, yeah. But now all of that shit has got a purpose because I can relate to people.
Yeah, yeah.
I can go into a crack house and it just feels normal to me, you know, because I've been in crack houses before. And I can also, it's healed my relationship into, I don't really have a relationship with my mum in terms of that we see each other. That all blew up recently. But in terms of internally my relationship with her and me being free from the resentment, I work with men prisoners leaving, but when I'm in the office I see women that are in addiction, and me feeling that compassion for these people is kind of healing me. It's healing me inside because I'm having this complete compassion for people that are in addiction, and I work with them every day. And a lot of people I work with are homeless, they're released from prison homeless, and for years I was so bitter, you know, about the things that happened to me and the life I was brought up in. But now it's kind of healed that part of me that people are just people, and people have addiction, and everyone has a backstory. And I can't tell you how much this job, working for a rehab and working with prison leaders, has done for me. It's completely that, and spiritualism. Like, don't forget the woohoo stuff as well, like the witchcraft and the crystals and like the divine timing, all of that. But all of it just came together within the last year, and I'm the best I've ever been at 41 years old. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Well. We're going to finish on 2 questions. Before we do, we'd like to publicly thank you for coming on. I think that one of our goals for Sobriety Club is to really engage with the female populace as well. I
Hmm.
think it's really important that it's equal. It's amazing. We love your story. We're looking forward to now going to be going on to Machiko from the US across the pond, which is going to be great as well. So from me, thank you for being brave enough to come on and share your story. That's not easy to do that, and that's an amazing story. And how you've turned your life around to actually help people at the thing what you struggle at is absolutely amazing. So from us to you, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for what you're doing. You and Roy, it's brilliant. It's amazing.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's just great. So I'm going to leave you on these two.
All right.
Can you look into that camera?
Mm.
Because when this goes out, well, it'll go out tonight, but tomorrow, Roy hits 2 years of sobriety. Have you got a message for him?
Roy, I remember once we had a conversation about someone on Facebook was saying, "How come you two never got together?" And one of us said, "Well, if we got together, one of us would have died back then because we were both so mental." So it's great to see that you're doing so amazing and you're carrying the message to others. You're using your wrestling platform to carry that message to those that are still suffering with alcoholism. And that's what it's all about. That is the absolute bottom line name of the game. So happy 2 years and hope to see you soon.
Brilliant. And then last question is when we ask all of our guests this: what does peace over chaos mean to you?
Peace over chaos is that fundamental trust in yourself that means that your life's going to be okay, ungoverned by anyone else, ungoverned by external factors. You might not be perfect or live your life perfectly, but you can trust yourself to make the right decisions for yourself because you have peace over
Amazing. And
chaos.
we're now going to go over live to Machiko, wonderful Sobriety Club ambassador, where I caught up with her about the same message. What does recovery look like to her? Hope you all enjoy it. Okay, we'd like to welcome Machiko, Sobriety
Hi,
Club ambassador. Hope you're well.
I am doing good. How are you doing?
Very good. Well, 5 a.m. club, so a little bit tired, but I'm plowing through.
Yeah, I'm in pretty much pajamas myself, so I get it.
Amazing, amazing. And before we get on to the topic of what real recovery looks like to you, could you just remind our Sobriety Club followers and maybe people that are checking in who are new to Sobriety Club a little bit about your background?
As far as like background, like starting from how long ago, just like pretty much how I got involved with
Yeah,
all of this, kind of
yeah,
like okay.
yeah.
Um, Well, my background, how I guess I can say like how I even got intertwined with all this to begin with is through professional wrestling, which I broke into the wrestling industry when I was 17, actually, like right about to turn 18, as a manager essentially. A couple years later, I started training. A couple years after that, I got my first match. And throughout professional wrestling, obviously, it's a very fun, rewarding, yet very difficult business, right? So with that, fast forward to the pandemic, when my wrestling career kind of screeched to a halt, like a lot of people, I started relying a bit on drinking more than usual. It went from being just, a casual drinking habit to, well, I lost, my job. My bookings got canceled. WrestleMania weekend, which was, coming up, had been canceled. And the momentum I essentially had with my wrestling career was put to a stop. And just the years and the what is it, like the trials and tribulations, I guess, like leading up to like my stride that it was on. It was just really heartbreaking. And then so obviously getting through the pandemic and getting through all of that, I did it in a there were some people who stayed on track, stayed working out, whatnot. That was not me. I was drinking my emotions away like most people during that time, and it kind of steamrolled out of control for the couple years following. And then in 2023, I decided that I I I needed to get it under control. So I was faced with the truth that I was not who I was anymore. That my true self had been lost, and drinking was a huge proponent to that. So I decided to stop drinking, and ever since then, like literally, my life has steamrolled pretty much in a different direction where I thought I would be, but definitely for the better. And because in the midst of my sobriety, like pretty much within my first year of sobriety was when I got diagnosed with my second degree AV block, which is a heart disease. And in my case, it's a congenital heart disease. So it's a birth defect. And while I have known to have symptoms throughout my whole life, doctors often disregarded it because when I would go to the hospital for chest pains, they would just think that I was just every other regular like patient that says it's chest pains, but they turn me away saying it's stomach aches or it's acid reflux or whatever their excuse was, even though my heartbeat was irregular the whole time and all these other clues. It's just American healthcare system in a nutshell, pretty much. And I paid me, like, they charged me for all of that as well. It's just insane. But then I finally got diagnosed. I came across the right cardiology team that cared. And as of back in March, I got a pacemaker. And what getting a pacemaker did was put the last nail in a coffin for my wrestling career, which I still have a hard time accepting. But then also at the same time, when I got sober, I made a promise myself to stay sober by committing to school and getting into school, because even if I hadn't gotten diagnosed, being in my early 30s, I'm like, maybe I need to think of something in case if I don't get back my momentum I had before the pandemic, in case, just to find something else I was passionate about. And it wasn't like I sat there and was like, I'm going to pick this and this is what I want to do. It really was like, I did pick something, which was just becoming a personal investigator. And then that steamrolled into studying law somehow because I was advised to go do a paralegal studies degree. And then, which is what I have back here. So I already have the degree, but in the midst of
Congratulations,
studying,
by the way,
thank,
from everyone back in the UK. I mean, I think just even to halt you on your story so far, it's a pretty amazing turnaround, really.
oh, thank you.
Yeah, amazing.
Well,
Carry on, anyway. Yeah,
no, you're good.
yeah.
And
Congratulations.
so this degree is a 2-year degree, and that's all I was pretty much wanting to do. But while I was studying law, I just happened to fall in love with it. And another little bump in the road for me was that to become a personal investigator, you have to be licensed. I know some people who do it without an official license, but obviously when you get licensed, like that's when doors open, right? And people hire you or whatnot. But in my situation, I can't get a license because I have a background essentially, and it's been a long time since I've been in any legal trouble. But even something as far as what is it, 13 years ago now, it still nixes me from getting certified. So I was like, you know what, whatever. Like, I love law. Like, let me just, and obviously I did my research as far as my record goes when it goes to like going into law school. And as long as I'm open and honest, which I have been, I'm very transparent about my life. I should be good to go. So I was like, you know what? Maybe being an attorney is my real route. So I'm still in school. I'm still working on my undergraduates because in Texas you have to have a bachelor's degree to get into law school. So I'm about done with that. And then, yes, the next step is law school, which is next year. And that is currently where I'm at right now.
Amazing. But can we just go back to, because we haven't really
Sorry, I
covered
kind of
this.
took off there.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. But I want to sort of go back to something that you said because we haven't really spoke about this in any of our shows so far. The impact of the pandemic, right?
Right.
So Texas. So for those who are in the UK or maybe who haven't been to Texas in America, what was life like in the pandemic in such a big state like Texas?
Oh my God. Yeah. It's just Texas, and even currently to this day, it's unfortunate that I have to bring up the political spectrum of it because being in Texas, the pandemic was heavily political.
Right.
And being in a red state, it was very much a battle between people who wanted to stay safe and people who thought that it was all a hoax or people who didn't understand the severity of the pandemic. And it was just a constant, like there was one point where I was able to go back to work and then a month later we were shut down again, and it was just like a one step forward, two steps back. It felt like for almost a year and a half, honestly, at least. A lot of people thought it was just a 2020 year, but no, it really followed us. It still follows us to this day, if I'm being honest. It completely changed a lot of, whether it's with wrestling, even because with the speaking out movement and all that, to everybody's like jobs that they go to. I bartend, so I'm a bartender like through and through. That's my main source of income. It has been for a long time. bartending has absolutely changed since the pandemic. The business hasn't been the same. So many bars and restaurants have closed. Music venues here have closed. Eventing centers have closed. Like it's still something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of it, like I said, is very politically fueled because that's just how Texas is, and because it's so big, and being in Dallas, which is a huge metroplex, that was pretty much the main point of stress when it came to the pandemic. In my experience here, being in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, was political ideologies and beliefs clashing, and in that instance, it had affected everybody's health. You know, people had died from it. Jobs got affected by it, and like I said, it felt like for that while it was like one step forward, two steps back, and it was hard on so many accounts
I mean, I
being
can
here.
remember I actually got locked down in Vegas. I was on a school trip in
Oh,
Las Vegas, and
I mean, that's a fun place to be locked down.
no, we actually, as we landed, um, it was March 2020, I think, from memory, I think, and
Yeah, it was.
it literally, as we landed, we got a message through going, the place is shutting down in a few days, and we actually drove out of Vegas as the lights were going off, like,
Mm,
and like, imagine like a zombie movie. It was like that, but in Vegas, like we literally had Vegas to ourselves. It was so weird.
that
It
is
was like,
crazy.
and we were meant to be going to San Diego, and that was locked down. So we ended up having to. I mean, this sounds terrible, right? We ended up having to be in like a Beverly Hills condo
Oh man,
yeah,
with the beach and
that
everything.
was a bit
Damn.
difficult. But even seeing that in such a big city was crazy. It was something out of a
Right.
movie. So I can imagine being in a big state like Texas. I mean, Dallas is huge, right?
Oh
So,
yeah, it's big.
so what sort of did that? You said about drinking culture during that period. Did that impact? Do you think not just yourself? Did it impact people generally, like a drinking culture of being locked in that period? Do you think?
Oh yeah, I mean, even myself, like it got to a point where, like down the road from my house where I lived at the time, there was this little mom and pop liquor store, and it got to the point where the owner of the liquor store, who I believed to be like, I believed he was the owner anyway, if not the manager, he was there a lot. So he was recognizing my car, would literally bring out my bottle of Jameson with a handheld, point of service system, and I would pay for it from my car. And it wasn't because of like that was their procedure or anything. They were still letting people inside. It literally was just because he knew who I was. And I just, for us, I believe that like a lot of people decided, well, me being a bartender, a lot of my bar regulars were like, they kind of got accustomed to drinking at home because it is cheaper, obviously to buy a handle as opposed to going to the bar, paying per drink, tipping, whatever. Um, but I feel like me and my coworkers at the time, because each of us individually were obviously going through something really rough. Like I had one of my coworkers who had a child pass away, like stuff like that. Like, um, we all got trauma bonded, and I feel like that's kind of how everybody in this area felt, where we were all drinking in excess, we were all crying together and laughing together and everything, and I felt like instead of liquor being the thing to sell it, like to use to celebrate, it became used for literally everything. We drank over our tears, we drank over our traumas, we were drinking over everything. Like, oh, we were able to reopen today, let's go drink. And it's just like, it really heavily accelerated the drinking culture here. And I believe that's also why now the drinking culture is, I don't know how it is out there, but in the United States, Gen Z, like the younger generations and stuff like that, and even some of the older generations now, like drinking has drastically dropped here.
Yeah, well, from my experience around where we live, I think that is drastically changing. I mean, I've got elder teens that live in my house with me, and they're not in the same culture as what we were. I mean, I think we've said
Right?
in one of our previous podcasts that when we were hitting 17, 18, we were, everything was a pound a drink.
Yeah.
Just over $1 a drink, which was crazy back then. It was a drinking culture. I don't
Yeah.
think there is a drinking culture at the minute. I do think the pandemic massively affected that, but I do think they're a generation of being on TikTok rather than having a drink in their hand. Do you know what I mean? The world's changed a little bit. I think, I don't know whether you think that, but also the prices of everything has gone up. So, like what you said, the price to get a drink in the UK now is crazy. So it's not even really. By the time you've got a taxi, had a couple of
No.
drinks, spend $100 easily on a night out.
Right. No, I've
So
actually it's funny that you brought up being locked down in the States. So Super Bowl weekend, I remember that distinctly because I remember one of my managers being upset I couldn't work. So that is early February, right? So early February of 2020, I was in London. I had wrestled in
wow,
London.
yeah,
And I remember being out there and seeing people in masks and stuff, and me being like, that's weird. Like I kind of vaguely heard about it, like COVID being a thing in other countries. Other countries are like starting to take precautions and whatnot. And me, I'm like, okay, this is kind of a flu. Like I didn't realize how big of a deal it was, right? Until a month later. But from my memory, I want to say it was like less than a month, maybe within a few weeks after I'd gotten back from London, is when they shut their gates down, where they were not allowing in or out travel of the country. And I'm like, man, I really was a few weeks away from being stuck in London with $600 to my name. I was like, if I had been just a few weeks later, that would have been a really rough situation for me being stuck out
yeah.
there. And yeah, it's just
Well, we had to
crazy.
almost get our school to get us home. Like we couldn't get on the regular flights.
Oh
Um,
man.
it would have been real difficult being stuck in Beverly Hills. I might have struggled with that a little bit, but
But still, you need to get back home, right? Like as
no,
beautiful of a place that
absolutely. Well,
is, you got to get back home.
my partner was pregnant as well. It was yeah,
Oh
no, and yeah, I know it's
man.
pretty crazy, yeah.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, no, that's yeah, not being with your
And that was an
doctor, not being
experience
at
as well.
home.
But that was an experience as well. Not me. I didn't give birth, obviously, but but having a child in COVID was a very very big experience. If you think like the
Oh
hospital, I had to
man.
drop my partner off. I wasn't allowed in right till the end. It was called a red zone.
Ugh.
Every nurse had a mask on.
All right.
It's literally the craziest thing I've ever dealt with. And I had no prenatal classes as well. Can you imagine me going into that? I was literally like, what, I
You
think
not knowing what
I
you're doing.
selected a picnic and to try and deal with it. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah.
Oh man. Well, good thing she didn't have the baby here because it probably would have costed. Well, I mean, I don't have kids, so I don't know the exact cost, but I know it's easily in the $40,000 range to have a child here in the U.S.
Wow.
But you don't always have to pay for it.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, we sort of we in England, as you probably know from being over there, we like to have a moan. It's quite cloudy in England. Everyone likes to have a moan, and we moan about our NHS, but I think in perspective we do get it for free. So I think like if people were to deal with the costs, I mean, I've had an experience with somebody dealing with costs of medical bills in the US, and they are not kind to people out there, are they?
No, and what's crazy too is that like yeah, insurance helps quite a bit, depending on the insurance. But just an example, like my pacemaker, it's a little guy. It's not like the traditional ones that they have like up here. It's a little one that they put through my artery like telescopically up, and it was literally a 15-minute procedure, and the little device is that big. With insurance, I had to pay $2,000 down to get on a payment plan, and the payment plan in total was for 8 grand, which is not a lot of people. I personally don't have 8 grand I can just shell up right then and there. Obviously, I had to do a payment plan. But without insurance, my pacemaker would have been $100,000.
Wow, wow,
$100,000,
wow.
and that's not including the previous appointments. That's not including everything I had to do to get diagnosed. Like the heart monitors and all that. Like it is insane here. And
USA is definitely for people that don't know the United States, it's definitely, you know, I don't know how to describe it, really.
it's
It's just,
it's a lot right now. I'll just
yeah,
say that. Like without getting too much into it, it's a lot.
yeah,
And I mean, but we are great for a lot of things. I will say that. Like, I don't absolutely hate my country or anything like that. We are awesome for a lot of things. And like funny that you mentioned soccer. Like, we just had the FIFA World Cup here, and like we had several matches here. Like, I literally bartended not even 10 minutes away from um, the AT&T Stadium, or the Dallas Stadium is what it was called. And it was just so amazing seeing everybody like enjoy Dallas. Like, I kept seeing like videos and photos and stuff like that, like on my, Dallas like news sites and stuff of people just having a great time here from London, from Japan, from Mexico, like from everywhere, Argentina. Like it was just such an awesome experience to have FIFA here.
Sport and wrestling. We'll come on to wrestling in a minute, but sport has this wonderful way of bringing everyone together, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And even though I'm not like a soccer fan, I've been to some soccer games because we have the FC Dallas team here, and they're fun. I've never gotten. I'm a United States football fan, like through and through, and not to compare or anything. I think both sports are absolutely admirable. I never got into soccer, and I like watching it.
Well,
Um,
I've been fortunate enough to know when I've gone to the States, I've watched the ice hockey, the basketball, the baseball.
Hockey's so fun too.
I've been a newbie to quite a lot of things.
Yeah.
We actually went to Indiana Wells one year and watched the tennis. That was quite cool.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, and so what I would say about the United States, I don't know whether you feel like this, but the one thing I love about the States is their togetherness. They're especially around sport, very positive around sport. The national anthem blows me away. Listen, I don't want to talk too badly about my country, but I feel like we've lost a little bit of our identity in the UK. Um,
Yeah.
a little bit
Oh,
really, and I feel like it's almost like if you sing your national anthem or put your flag up, you get questioned at times in the UK, which is crazy.
man.
And what I love about America is no matter I could sit in a USA stadium. There's lots of people from different races, different cultures, different religions in the USA. But when that national anthem hits, everyone stands up. They sing it at the top of their voice, and they mean every single bit of it. Is what I feel anyway. And I love that patriotism and the sense of that your country is above everything. No matter what politics is going on at the time or anything, it's still your country is your country, and I love that. I think that's one of the biggest things that I get from being in America.
Yeah, and even now our political culture is very heated. It's very divided, honestly. I'm sure most people can acknowledge that even not being here, they can see it. But I guess the beautiful part about it is that I mean, you have the people who think America's doing great right now. I'm personally am not one of those people, but they have that pride, right? They go by saying, they're a patriot, whatever. But then you have the people like me who aren't happy with where it's going right now, like it's just perfect timing that I'm studying American law and history and politics, and I'm, as a pre-law student. And so, like, for me, I found my patriotism and my form of it is learning about it, learning about our history, learning about how our politics work. Because when you know about what works and what hasn't worked in the past, is when you become more passionate and informed. And I think information and education, whether it's a college degree, whether it's through adequate research, wherever it is, and it's coming from at least a resourceful site. Anywho, it's another form of patriotism. So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
me not being happy with the current state of our country is being a patriot. It means I'm invested. It means I care.
Well,
Um,
that's what I like about the place. I get that feeling every time I go there. No matter
yeah,
like what you said, no matter how people are happy or not happy, they still want the best for their country. That's what the feeling I get anyway when I'm.
yeah. No, absolutely. And, and it's very few that you have those people who are just in between who just would rather stay out of it and they're just trying to live day to day and live in peace, whatever. But no, right now it's definitely kind of emotionally like turmoil going on, but it all comes from wanting America to be great. And it's coming from wanting us to, live the American dream, right? That's the slogan that we have. So
Yeah, yeah. Before we talk about what recovery looks like to you, can we just go back to what you said about wrestling? You mentioned about you still sometimes find it hard to not get over, but you know, look back at. Are you
it's
able to? Do you still have your passion for wrestling, or have you almost had to turn an eye on it, or can you still be as heavily involved in it?
well, for me, I think I'm kind of in between. Like, I'm not one of those that thinks that if I just turn my eye to it and just don't look at it or fixated on it anymore, like, first of all, it's kind of hard for me not to. Like, I still have friends that are in the wrestling industry. My social medias are all full of like wrestling, like
Sorry.
wrestlers. My algorithm is still heavily wrestling. because of all my friends I still interact with. I mean, my best friend, she's the WWE ID champion now. Like, so I pay attention enough, of course, with the current state of wrestling because like she's killing it, and then like I have other friends who are killing it, and these are all friends that I met over 10 years ago, too. It's not just friends I made like a couple years ago. These are people who are like day ones, that are doing amazing things. So I don't want to turn a blind eye. I want to see them do good. As far as like my personal involvement is where I kind of sway because I have found so much passion in my school right now in breaking into the legal field and everything like that. Like, I don't want to divert from that. And also being able to bartend full time as opposed to before when it was just part time and I was missing weekends and stuff to go wrestle. Like, financially, I'm in the most comfortable place I've ever been in my life.
Amazing.
So it's like, I don't want to deviate from that anymore either, especially because now I'm engaged. We own a house now. We have
Congratulations.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. And love it. And we have
Amazing.
two cats and a dog. We don't plan on having kids or anything, but we still have a family and still have a house to take care of. So I definitely am not trying to fully involve myself in pro wrestling again like I was once, even if it was just like a manager role or like an announcer role or anything like that. But I still like keeping an eye on it. I
You sound
still
like you've
would.
got you sound like you've got real good structure now with your job, with your education. You're being engaged, having two cats and a dog, which is awesome.
Yeah,
We've got a cat and a dog, which is the best thing ever.
I love
Um,
it.
so how much do you think that um, having a structure impacts people's mental health? For example, we talk a lot about substances and being mentally strong and making a choice and looking in the mirror, but it's easier said than done, right? If you're somebody who's in the USA, a big country, and you've got so much pressure, you can't get the income coming in. Do you think it's easy to turn to drink and try and lose the reality of life around you? Do you think that's quite a common thing in the States?
So easy. It
Yeah,
is so easy because drinking is so heavily embedded in our culture here. It's, and as a bartender, I see it every day. I see, you know, people who do have structure. And like, I work at a type of bar where we're very much, um, our bar is very much in these people's schedules because they come see us every day. Like 80% of the people I see at my bar, I see almost every day. But then I do get the people too who are they're lost. They don't know where they want to be at right now. They are just trying to forget, and it's people I see consistently drink to that point. Um, Whether it was on my watch or they come in trying to drink more or anything like that, like you don't know what these people are going through, right? Or more importantly and more scary is that we don't know what they do before they come into our bar. So it's like there's been times where I literally serve somebody just two drinks and all of a sudden their eyes are starting to get hazy and they're closing their eyes a bit or doing this. I'm like, yo, we got to get you home. Like, and it's that's just some people are still in that phase, and although my version of drinking maybe didn't look like that version or this other version or whatnot, like, I'm sure even my fiance and I, because he's sober now too, he's been sober a couple months longer than me. We
amazing.
got sober around the same time of the year. And, his type of drinking was drastically different from mine where he was drinking to like black out and like once he starts he just goes hard, whereas me, I was drinking a lot throughout the day because I liked being buzzed, I liked being a bit drunk, but I didn't like being blacked out. I liked still having control. I still liked being able to speak words, coherent sentences, and all that, you know what I mean? Like I was still able to function, but at the end of the day I'm still drinking just as much. I'm just doing it in a longer
Yeah, yeah.
time frame, and and it's like it's still bad at the end of the day. It's still not a good thing to have that as a fuel or as a way of coping with what's going on around you. And it's easy to get into that cycle here
So
for sure.
before we dig a little bit deeper into sort of the moments of your life that have got you to where you are today, what does real recovery look like to you?
I don't think it real recovery, I think it can look different for people. I think it's just a matter of, because I think the first and foremost thing that you need to do as far as recovery goes is working on your mental health. Because that's ultimately what has driven all of us to drink at some point. Um, for me, I had to dig deep because it runs in my family. Like my dad passed away when I was 13, his brother had passed away when his brother was only 25 when he died from it, and it was way before I was even born. I never got to meet my uncle. My dad's parents, my parents or my grandparents, I never met them either. My aunt, his sister, she's been sober. She became an alcoholic too, but she's been sober now for like 40 or so years.
Amazing.
So my sister, she's been sober for 7 years. Like, it runs in our family. So for me, it's like, I wanted to end that cycle. And to do that, obviously, growing up with losing my dad at a young age and everything, I really had to dig deep and go back and work on my mental health. And to some people, they do that and, they get sober like for their kids or whatnot. Like, not everybody has that sober story where they get sober and all of a sudden all these great things happen to them. Like, some people get sober and they're just able to do their life better, like, um, and I say that because I don't want people to think that because they get sober, all of a sudden they expect all these things to happen. If they don't happen, then they lose hope. But it's like, no, being sober in itself is a celebration. You don't have to get a degree. You don't have to, um, go get married or have kids or go buy a house or something. Like, it's being sober in itself should be celebrated.
I mean,
And then,
I do agree with you because I spoke to Poppy, who's on this show, and earlier, and she said about how sometimes people think that that with trauma, by the way, people with trauma that sometimes think that the minute you drop the bottle, all your mental health goes away. That's just not how it works, right? You've
no,
actually got to deal with the root cause, which could be your trauma, right?
right. And
So,
sometimes that takes longer to get through than others. And me, I'm still working on it.
so can we? So I don't, obviously you can go where you want with this. Can you look back at your life and think of any moments where you feel that trauma is really what you're still trying to deal with, or that it got you to where you were at the point where you were drinking a lot? Is there any? Yeah. What was the main things for you?
What mainly spiraled my drinking was, I had mentioned the pandemic, and during the pandemic, um, this was something that we touched base on, meeting each other and everything. Was during the pandemic, pro wrestling had that speaking out movement, and which essentially was a bunch of women who were brave enough to post their stories about men who had either sexually assaulted them, abused them, put them in like, you know, uh, what is it like power advantage situations and stuff like that, pretty much just like men making the space not safe for women. And women shared their experiences. I would say the biggest name of them all that had the most, victim names and everything like that was Joey Ryan. We all know how that went. Um, I I met him a handful of times. He was nice to me, but seeing all the stories and especially some of the stories from people I knew personally, like, it broke my heart. But it gave me the courage. It gave me the courage to talk about my story. And I had two specifically. And I had one who was my ex boyfriend from, what, it was 13 years ago, the one that essentially landed me in some legal trouble and whatnot. And he was a promoter here in Texas that had a pretty large name for himself at one point, like the promotion did anyway. And immediately, like, all of a sudden, nobody cares about his show anymore. Like, lack of a better way to put it, I canceled him, I guess, right? But I spoke about my story with him, which didn't come to surprise with most people because people saw those patterns with his wife that he had and everything. And then my second story, which was the one that went viral, was of course surrounding Ted and Teddy Hart, and just being that vulnerable and having my phone. It was what stressed me out the most was like my phone was dinging constantly, like the reposts on Twitter. Like, I had to shut off those notifications, and as of recently, I actually deleted my Twitter account because I just never used it anymore anyway. But
Twitter's gone a bit of a different space now, hasn't it?
yeah, no, especially wrestling Twitter, which was all my Twitter was about. Like, I just hated seeing it, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna delete
It's
it.
almost like a free hit to abuse people on there now, isn't it? Like,
Yeah, it's disgusting. Like, I can't
yeah,
stand the culture there, but I understand why people have it because it is like, people have thousands of followers there to, support and engage with. But,
yeah.
I remember distinctly being on the phone and my friend Bear, who's like, I call him a brother from another mother, and I say that because I love his mom too. Like, he broke me into wrestling and everything. I remember being on the phone with him right after I had made my post on Twitter, and I was on the phone with him, and he's just like, so we were talking about other stuff, and he's like, so with the speaking out thing, he's like, are you going to talk about Ted? And because he was curious, and I was like, I literally just posted about him, and I hear my phone going off in my ear as I'm on the phone with you. And he's like, whoa, are you serious? And like, we both looked at the numbers and everything, and it's just like a matter of minutes, just repost, retweet, reshare, just like it just started going off. And I remember I was dating a guy at the time. It was a brief relationship, and we went to where I worked because he lived across the street from me. Like, literally, shortly after I got off the phone, I was like, I need to go to the bar. I need a drink. Like, I need a. And then, like, one of my best friends happened to be there at the bar too, and he had saw my post. He came and gave me a big hug. Like, it was a whole moment for me. And while I was processing that and dealing with that, 6, 7 months later, I get hit up by NBC and Blumhouse and WWE about doing that docu-series. And long story short, they twisted it into something to me that I thought was different. What they had sold to me was that this was going to be a documentary about how women got abused, that the central focus point was this woman, Samantha Fiddler, who's missing, and she's still missing. Um, and she was a woman that Ted was with concurrent with my relationship with him, because we weren't in like a normal monogamous relationship, right? We were more like really close friends that like did relationship things, but like we were more work partners than anything. But he ended up picking her up, and taking her on these road trips and stuff, like while we still had our house together and everything and our cats and all that. But she ended up going missing a few months after I had left him, and we still don't know what happened or anything, but that's pretty much what they sold me this project as, was to surround her disappearance, but also shine light on what women go through in the wrestling industry, because she was breaking into wrestling too. So I was like, okay, I would love to do this. Like, obviously, and I knew in my head, like, I'm gonna have to talk about Ted, right? Because that's what my post was about. But what I didn't realize until the product had actually come out, it was literally a Teddy Hart shit show, and it was just, I don't know if I might have still done it, but it definitely would have changed how I took on the series and everything like that if I'd known what it really was. And
Yeah.
dealing with all of that, having to look at old footage that the videographer had from 10 years ago when I was with him, all these things, just reopening those wounds and reliving that life. Like, when me and my ex-boyfriend sat and watched it, it's a three-part series on Peacock. When we had sat and watched it, we had a big handle of Jameson, and him and I pretty much drinking down to like this. And I was doing shot for shot with him. Like, we split that whole bottle damn near in half. And he's a 6'4". He's a big dude too. And I'm drinking shot for shot with him because it was hard watching all that. And
Open mechanism.
yeah, and not just that, but what I did prior to that docuseries and what I did for years after I had left Ted was separate myself from him, work on my own thing, do my own, like, and it was working. Like, I had built my own identity and everything, because the reality is I broke into wrestling before I met him. But a lot of people assumed I broke into wrestling because of him. And I'm like, no, y'all just didn't know me before, but I've been in this business well long before I even met the guy. And so now the biggest platform that I was seen on now is being his ex-girlfriend that was abused by him. And I'm like, I feel like I completely just derailed all my progress for myself um, by being on this series. And it broke me. It absolutely snapped me. And that's when my drinking, like I said, just steamrolled and steamrolled. And 8 months after that.
If you were looking at a crystal ball, if you could, let's say that there's a younger girl who's unfortunately having to go through that same experience as you, and you had an opportunity to now give her advice going through that. What advice would you be giving to that young girl right now?
Oh, I mean, I always have such a tough time with those questions, solely because, like, I am one of those people that believe things happen for a reason, even if it's unfair. I wouldn't be where I'm at now if it wasn't for that. A lot of the legal troubles I got in around the time I was with Ted, and even prior to that, are one of the biggest reasons why I am in pursuit of law school now. Um, and in my drinking as well, because what I want to do is become a criminal defense attorney, which I feel like is somebody I needed, like a one that cares anyway. I needed that at the time. But not just that, I want to specialize in alcohol and drug related offenses because I want people to not have to go to jail and sit out their problems there. I feel like they're not criminals. I feel like they just need help. And I want to be that help. And so if I didn't go through what I went through with my drinking, if I didn't go through what I went through with my legal issues before, I don't know where I'd be at today. I don't know if it'd be a better place or a worse place. Like
Well,
I so
alcohol, as you know, you could be, there's people in this world that probably have never had a problem with alcohol, and they have one night where they drink too much and mixed with a bad mood, and that can change the course of their lives, right? Just one situation, and then they get demonized for that for the rest of their life.
right. Like
You
it's
know,
just I
so that,
just
yeah.
I would probably, if I had to give advice to my younger self, back to the actual question, I honestly would just tell myself to stay strong, just maybe if I had stayed strong and just worked through like the pandemic and whatnot, I wouldn't have become an alcoholic because considering the rest of my family, it took me until my late 20s to really have a drinking problem, to whereas like most of my family were either um on their way to their deathbeds, in my uncle's case, dead, before that age. So it's like, I would just tell myself to stay strong, that it's, that
Roy,
you got this.
Roy, a lot of the males that we've spoken to on here relate to having like this one defining moment that changed their way. When I've spoken to the female cohort, like Poppy earlier, she couldn't put it down to one moment of her recovery. It was like a process of what got her to this point. Where do you sit with that? When you look back at your recovery, can you put it down to one defining moment, or is there multiple? Like you said, everything happens for a reason. Can you put it down to multiple things? What's your story in regards to your recovery?
Are you, so just to be clear, are you asking what was the defining moment that made me get sober, or are you talking about?
Well, I suppose it's quite an open question, really. So we'll start with that. We'll start with getting sober. Was there one moment?
There was. It was, so my ex-boyfriend that I was with during the, um, docu-series and all that, him and I were together for like a bit over a year and a few months. And he really, I mean, he was my best friend at the time, right? Like, I don't, while obviously we didn't work out, and it was because honestly, at the end of the day, it was because I got sober and he didn't. And I had to choose school and my path over our relationship because I felt like I wasn't going to be where I'm at now if I stayed with him. Because he was still heavily drinking. I still don't think, I don't think he's a bad man at all. I wish him the best. I still have a lot of love for that guy. Like, even though I don't care to talk to him anymore or anything like that, like, I don't have anything bad to say about him, but he helped me actually get sober because the one thing he said to me, and him and I were friends like back in the day. Like he had known me for a long time. He knew me when I was like wrestling full time. He knew me when I was with Ted. So like he's known me for a while. But one thing he said that stuck out to me was your light isn't as bright when you drink. He's like, it's like when you get drunk every night, it's like that light just fizzles out and you're not who you are. And it hit me when he said that because it's like it wasn't that he gave me some ultimatum or said, "Oh, you're shitty when you drink" or anything. He literally like talked to me like he cared about me when he said those things, and it just stuck with me because it was those things that like I've always had in the back of my head like, man, I'm just not going to the gym anymore. Man, my face is bloated. I look a bit puffier. Like when I'm wrestling my matches, the matches I did have, like while I was still like in that phase, I'm like I'm not as like good a shape anymore. I don't look good in my gear. Like I had all those things, and so when he said that, it kind of solidified and like cemented like all those doubts I had in my head. So I was like, you know what, like then let's have some change, and I did that. And a couple months later, though, it was obviously what bended and broke our relationship was my sobriety, and I don't regret it one bit. Obviously, I don't
And then
regret it at all.
fast forward to now. So you mentioned that you're in a really good place. You've got the ring, you've got the cat, the dog. Everything. Everything's going great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Speaking.
is there, if you look back, is there any other moments that you can think has led you to get to where you are now, like in terms of your recovery of you and where you're at now?
Graduating was a big one because I didn't graduate high school. I got a GED. I dropped out and later on got a GED. And then I did go to college, like a community college at the time. went there for like a semester or so and couldn't go back for a bunch of reasons, but couldn't go back. So it's like I just stuck with wrestling throughout my 20s. And being able to graduate and finally wear a cap and gown and cross that stage really was just like empowering to me. Even being, in my 30s now, like I was still like, man, I really got to walk that stage. And a lot, and the reason why is because I got sober. I took control of my life. And not only did I graduate, but I graduated with a 4.0 GPA and got a transfer credit, or I'm sorry, a transfer scholarship to University of North Texas. Like my school, like I said, that has been the
That's
pinnacle
brave,
of my
isn't it? That's
sobriety.
brave. That's brave in itself because the amount of people that could have maybe looked at that and gone, "Oh, I can't go back to that. I've been there and I've done that," and maybe wouldn't face up to doing that. The fact that you've gone, "No, I'm gonna do this,"
Yeah.
is
And
actually
school is
brave.
so different too. I'm 34 and like, I remember when I first went to college, like having your laptop in class was just starting, Now with having everything online, which is what I do, like all my schooling's online. Just having to worry about like AI checkers and stuff like that, and like worry about like, you know, certain like Google Docs and like the keystrokes and making sure that like because like that's something that I learned this past semester was that like it's good to use an app or like Microsoft Word or something and having the keystroke like recorder on because that's what people have to do to prove that their essays are not AI because that's an issue now, like you have to work around AI and how it's used in school or how it
Well, it's
can't be used in
happening.
school.
I teach, the equivalent of I'm trying to think what it would be in your place. But have you heard of A levels, right?
Have what?
Have you heard of A levels in the UK? It's almost
No, I don't think
it's
so.
almost like you do that before you go to university in England. So
Okay.
we teach that level out in the UK, and we've got that because our qualification is no exams; it's all written essays.
Oh wow.
So
Oof.
we have that with our students with AI, and the world has changed completely, hasn't it? You know,
Yeah, no. And it's like having to submit everything online too, even get like a transcript online and all that. It's just like while I'm not completely lost when it comes to technology, it was still just a huge learning curve for me. Going back into school was just how they do it nowadays, and I'm still learning, because like my first degree was at a community college, and now I'm in a university. It's way more complex. It's harder, very much harder, more expensive too. But yeah,
but worth it in the end, right?
yeah, it's a huge reality check on how times have changed, even if
Can
it's
we
just 15
can we
years.
revisit your? We're going to revisit your wrestling career, and
Okay.
we want you to, because there'll be people that are from the UK that will now be interested in maybe going back and watching you wrestle. What what were your standout five best wrestling highlights for you in your career that you look back and think that was awesome?
Like match wise or just in general,
It
just
can be any,
experiences?
can be absolutely anything.
Oh man, I mean, one thing that stuck out was a match that I had, and it was actually at this place called Gas Monkey, which is it's a garage. Most people know as Gas Monkey Garage, but they had a music venue, and I got to wrestle there, which was crazy because I worked there. Um, so not only did I feel at home, but the promotion itself brought in a bunch of big names. It was great. I was originally supposed to wrestle this one girl named Robin, and it was supposed to be just a singles match. And I noticed that Victoria, Lisa Marie, she was booked, and she was in a another singles match as well. So I show up to the venue, and the promoter's like, "Hey, like, things had to change around, and y'all are in a tag match now, and it's me and the girl I was supposed to wrestle. It's us as a tag team against Victoria and Rachel Ellering." And so like Victoria was like one of my absolute favorites, like top three like favorites growing up to watch. So being told when I get to the venue that I was gonna wrestle her just blew my mind. And obviously they put her over, so like I got to take her Widow's Peak, like her infamous
Oh
Widow's
wow, yeah,
Peak. I have a video of it and everything. It's beautiful. And not just that, but like her and I became friends. Like
amazing.
we traded numbers. Like we got to see each other again a few months later when he brought her back. Like, and when he brought her back, it was again we were in two singles matches, but I had my own, she had her own, and both of our matches individually just weren't what we wanted it to be. We were both talking about it privately, like just like she was like, "Yeah, my match didn't go well. Something bad had happened," and like I was like, "Yeah, mine just wasn't really there either." And then she sat there for a second. She's like, "I really wish they had put you and I together." And her telling me that just blew my mind. I was like, it just now
Yeah,
it
that's
still gives me
great.
butterflies, and I'm like, that is just things like that. I Another incident was standing outside of Kevin Nash's party in New York, Mania weekend of 2019, and I was
But
smoking
that was
cigarettes at the
wild.
huh.
I bet that was wild.
Oh my god, it was great. That was so fun. So I was outside smoking a cigarette because I was smoking at the time, and I just remember seeing Val Venus outside. And again, I'm a huge attitude era like
Yeah,
wrestling
same.
kid, right?
Yeah.
So I just like happened to notice that. I was like, oh shit, okay. And like I stepped off to the side to like smoke my cigarette, I didn't want to like I just was to
He
myself.
wasn't wrapped in a towel by any chance, was he?
No, he was fully clothed,
Just to
like
check that people watching at home, full Val
yeah, no,
Venus moment.
he
Yeah.
was fully covered. He was fine. He looked appropriate. And so
Yeah.
he was with a couple of his friends, and all of a sudden,
He
like
didn't
they have
go.
a
He didn't
joint.
go. Hello, Machika. Did he? Did he try?
No,
No, no,
no,
no, no, no.
no.
Okay.
And so I overhear him talking with his friends, and I hear one of them go like, "Man, we need a lighter." He's like, "This lighter's out," and I hear him go, "Well, maybe we can ask that girl over there if she has a lighter." And so he came up to me and he was like, "Hey, do you mind if we borrow your lighter?" And he was like, "Do you want to smoke with us?" Like he had a joint. He was gonna say no to smoking weed with Val Venus. So I was like, "Yeah, let's go." And like,
I mean, that
and
is
then
a
we
claim to fame, right?
yeah, and so like and it was a great time, and like we traded Instagrams and stuff like that, and it was great. And I'm just like, cool, like, and just stuff like that, and then like,
So the
just
big Val
making,
Boski became the big Val Smokeski.
yeah, yeah, he's a huge marijuana advocate. It's awesome,
Amazing.
but like, I so just it's just moments like that because one of the big things I made sure I did in my time with wrestling was like when WrestleMania weekend it happens, like when it happens, I'm there. Even if I have to pay for my own flight, I'm there because I'm networking, I'm getting booked, I'm partying with these people, because it's like that to me, I had the best experiences with because it's like, yeah, sure, you could show up to a show and, show up dressed nice, help at the ring, do that, whatever, by the book stuff. But like in my experience, who people helped out the most was those they had fun with because they want that energy and they want that connection in the locker room. Like you can show up and do everything you're told to do, but if you're a dick at the end of the day, they don't want you around, right? So it's
Yeah.
like, so those Mania weekends, man, like there was one Mania weekend, which is another moment, was when I was in New Orleans for Mania weekend. I had a table, um, at a table for a promotion I was working with, and literally the next table over was Chavo Guerrero, and we recognized each other from a show he was booked on in Dallas that like we had worked on together, and just like being able to like do the hey, how's it going? How have you been with Chavo Guerrero Jr., who again loved him and Eddie as a kid, Attitude Era, of course, like another paramount social moment in my life. Just those experiences I never once thought I'd ever
You
had.
mentioned Japan with regard to your name. Where did where does that come from?
My mom's Japanese.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, like I look a lot like my dad, but my mom is
Yeah. So
Japanese.
do you mind going just a little bit about we've sort of diverted from wrestling, but just tell everyone who's watching at home a little bit about your background with your parents.
What like I'm sorry, like background with my parents, you
Well,
said
no,
like
as in your mum's Japanese. Is your father from the USA?
yeah, my dad was
Yeah.
American.
Yeah.
My mom came here to the States when she was like in her early 20s, and she's been here ever since. And when she married my dad, he so my mom she's been married a couple times, so she has kids with other men too, but with me and my sister, she had us both with my dad, and my sister being older, like he picked her name and he loved They're both old hippies, classic rock hippies, and they always refer to each other as the John Lennon and Yoko Ono couple, and it's like really cringy and corny, but you know what? Like it was cute. I love it. I could see it, but it's like it's corny, right? So he embraced my mom's culture, and he really wanted to name my sister Akiko because that was a Japanese girlfriend James Bond had in a movie, and he loved James Bond, so he picked that name. And then so my mom was like, well, then her sister, me, I want to pick a Japanese name for her too, and I was named after my mom's high school best friend that she had when she was in Japan. So she named me Machiko, and when it translating that into wrestling, I really wanted to wrestle in Japan. Unfortunately, I did not get to do that. But obviously going to Japan is a huge bucket list item for me. I was supposed to do it in 2020, but we all know how that went. And she, or I just because I wanted to wrestle in Japan and whatnot, I didn't want to hide my, ethnicity and stuff like that, even though I'm absolutely whitewashed. I stuck with Machiko. It's a unique name. Again, it's very marketable. If, that was really why I was going to get booked out to Japan to begin with. The promoter I was talking to, he was like, you being mixed race, you being, American and Japanese, he's like, they would eat that up here, especially because you do present white, but some people do think do claim I look a little Japanese, but he thought that that was so marketable and he wanted me out there for that. And that's exactly why I stuck with my name. I always had the Rising Sun flag on my
Has
gear.
wrestling been in your family, or are you the first to do it?
First. Absolutely
Well,
first.
and
Yeah. Like,
what got you into that?
just loving it as a kid. Like I
Yeah.
watched it. My sister and I were big fans together. We both hit a point where we both kind of grew out of it. She stayed out of it though. But for me, I kind of got back into it in high school when my close high school friends, they would go to like independent wrestling shows and stuff. And so I started falling back in love with wrestling when I started going to these shows with them. And then within those shows, I started to meet people, and that's how I got broken in, was being asked to valet on a wrestling show. And then like once I got booked on that one show, I just never looked back. And that's essentially how I got into it.
For any fans, UK, USA, or we actually got Canada and Australia, so I've been told now. So hi guys, if you're checking in from those places, that's new on the list apparently. Um, is there any matches that we can watch of you on YouTube, or anyone can look back at your work? And is there any that you would recommend to look at?
um, yes, I have some. I don't look myself up or anything like that. So it's like there's a lot out there. And unfortunately, there are a couple matches I wish had made it on video, or like the video made it to the internet and never did. But the couple that I can think of at the top of my head is that tag match with me and Robin against Victoria and Rachel Ellering. It's a brief match, but you get to see me take the widow's peak. It's great, and my good friend Josh videoed it too, so it's a really good quality video. That's on there. Another match that I thought was really fun that I enjoyed was for Booker T's Ladies Night Out. I wrestled my best friend Lainey, and it was, I think, like maybe our second match together. But it's a really good singles match. It was filmed in Houston, Texas for Reality Wrestling, the Ladies Night Out series. That's on there. Trying to think of what else. Like I said, it's been a lot of years. Metroplex Wrestling is a promotion that has some matches of mine there too. And not just that, but they still run an amazing show. They've since Athena and her husband Matt Palmer have taken it over too. It's just completely blown up. So not only do I recommend going to look at my matches through Metroplex Wrestling, but also just to follow their product in general. They're great. They're my home promotion. I love them to death. Seeing them grow, it's been amazing. So yeah, I would recommend looking at my matches on there as well.
Amazing. And just before we come to a sort of an end, so Sobriety Club Ambassador. Um, what's it been like? I know it's like it's been for me and Roy. It's been a crazy 8 months.
Right.
Watching this thing go nuts has been the best thing ever. It's helped so many people. But
Seeing
for
Jeff
love,
Hardy and Matt Hardy with those shirts
oh,
too.
mate, I literally, you can imagine, I literally my jaw has been like locked open for a week. I can't.
No, like, and it's again the whole Attitude Era kid. The Attitude Era kid in me is like, I am in Sobriety Club too. What's up?
It's
Like,
great.
I
It's
love
just
it.
so overwhelming, right? But what's so? we're very, very proud of our ambassadors. We've got great ambassadors, and everyone's passionate, which is you just can't. If you had to bottle that up and sell that, would be there would be no price to it. It's amazing. What's it like being an ambassador? What does it mean to you being an ambassador? And has anyone asked you about it? Is it back home?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, all my coworkers, like even like my fiance and stuff too, like they've all just like picked my brain on it, and they're like, "Oh, what is this really about?" And I'm like, "Well, it's about this." And for me, what I find the most rewarding part of this whole experience is because I've missed wrestling so much, right? Like I am focused on my school and everything, but the fact that it's still a wrestling community and it's still something I can be involved with, especially virtually, right? Like talking, like doing this and being connected to like Bronwyn again. Her and I have been Facebook friends for a long while. We've known each other and everything, and Rich Swan, like, in which shout out Rich Swan, thank you. He was the one that tagged me in all this, and
Well, guy.
he's a fucking sweetheart. I love that guy so much, and it's just like being able to connect again with
I wish you could
people.
dance though, just not that.
Right, and just being able to connect again with not just a wrestling community, but a community I'm still actively involved in, which is a sober community, because I am involved in that too here at home. Like it's amazing. It's being able to pull something I'm actively working on while being able to pull in the wrestling aspect that I have missed so much, and connecting with that and being able to share that message, considering wrestling is very much heavily dependent on substance abuse and stuff like that, like, or is known for it anyway. And it's like being able to help that in that regard and being able to contribute back to wrestling again, but in a very positive light and manner.
And you will have your merch soon. Apparently, it's going to be with me Wednesday, and then I'll send it straight out to you. So next time we speak, you can have your Peace Over Chaos gear as well. That'd be awesome.
On Wednesday, you said?
I'll get it. It comes to me on Wednesday, and then I'll send it straight out to you. Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
nice. Yeah, I,
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know it was Wednesday. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, just like being able to do all that, just it really just it fills that spot in my heart that I've missed when it comes to pro wrestling, and it makes it better, honestly. And I love it, and I'm proud of it, and I'm very proud to see this movement growing, and being a part of that. And off the hard work of you and Rory putting all this together, it makes me feel appreciated, and it makes me feel seen that like I've been able to join you guys and do that. And
Well,
you
it
know,
definitely is powerful movement. You can feel it, and I'm going to ask you the same two questions as I've asked all our other guests. So, question number one is: Roy's dream is to literally open a sobriety club. Okay, so a venue, right?
nice.
So, what would your sobriety club look like in Texas?
It's funny because in Dallas, there's been in Texas actually too. I don't know if you're familiar with kava at all. Kava is a pepper plant root that's like steeped like a tea that you drink.
I am familiar with. Yeah, I am.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's actually been a huge movement here in the United States, and especially in Dallas. We have like 8 kava bars here now, and um, that is something that my fiance and I talked about opening. And because I've bartended in a lot of sports and dive bars, like me, I think it would be a cool idea to have like a sober slash kava bar be like a dive bar where we have pool tables, we have TVs all over the walls, you get to watch games with the sound on and stuff like that. Like that to me, I've always felt the most comfortable as a drinker being in that kind of environment. So to be able to have that environment without the alcohol, in my idea, would be just amazing.
So, are you going to manage one in Dallas for us then? When we open,
Well, I mean,
when we open one in
if
Dallas,
I
are
can
you
juggle
in?
that, with being an attorney, absolutely.
And then finally, before we talk about Roy, finally, what does peace over chaos look like to you?
The life I have now, honestly, like it's just to me, it's putting in that work and ensuring that you're doing whether it's doing the 12-step program, whether it's some people lean on religion, some people lean on anything else. It's literally making these choices to curate a more positive life and not giving up. And that's the most important thing, is just not giving up. um is what peace over chaos stands for me, because it's at the end of the day, it's going to reward you. What you get what you put out, and if you're putting out positive affirmations and hard work and whatnot, you're going to be rewarded for it. And Otherwise, you may lead yourself into chaos again. And my life has been nothing less than chaotic. But now I finally have the peace I've been yearning for, and it wasn't handed to me by any means.
Amazing. Roy, 2 years sober today. I know you've got we've done a message for him, haven't we? But
Yeah.
which will be out later. But just to summarise that, for someone who started the Sobriety Club up, have you got any words for Roy?
Just thank you. Like I said a minute ago, how just this has filled an empty spot in my heart that I had for professional wrestling, and for you to um, build this community, which obviously it's not just for wrestlers. Anybody who's sober and whatnot obviously is part of it, but the fact that it is predominantly like professional wrestling, like, and having that platform, and then like having, your sister also like represent the brand too, and she's obviously a huge wrestling superstar, which is amazing to see. But she having both of y'all just, and like obviously too, like just giving me that sense of um service to wrestling again, and being able to celebrate sobriety, all of us together. I just want to say thank you, honestly.
No,
And
and
thank
thank
you for
you,
having me on.
and we appreciate you, and we look to do this again soon. That would be amazing. We'll get
Oh,
you
yeah, no, I would
you
love
and
that.
Bronwyn on together. That'd be awesome.
Oh, yeah, no, I anytime.
Yeah, amazing. Well, listen, Machiko, thank you. I did
Thank you so
pronounce
much.
that right, did
Oh, no, you did.
I?
Accent and all.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, listen, we appreciate you. Peace over chaos. Congratulations on your engagement, and we obviously wish you all the best with your education, and we hope to see you incriminating lots of people in the next few years.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Speak to you soon.
All right, you too, babes. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.